Hello, everyone. My name's Ethan Alva Shepherd. Today I'm going to be discussing Tourette Syndrome. Um, let's just kind of get right into it. So, Tourette Syndrome is a disorder that involves repetitive movements or unwanted sounds that can't be easily controlled. Uh, Blinking eyes, shrugging shoulders, unusual sounds are typical of Tourette syndrome. Um, the more probably common known thing is uttering offensive words, vulgar words. That's a tough word right there to say, vulgar. Um, Tourette syndrome is a neuropsychological disorder characterized by involuntary utterances and body movements. These things are called tics. There are two types of tics. There's simple tics and there's complex tics, of which I'll talk about here in a moment. Just a little backstory. Tourette syndrome was named by French neurologist Jean-Martin Charcot. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I gave it my best shot. He had for his intern with the same his last name had Tourette in it. It is Georges Gilles de la Tourette. Again, I apologize if I'm not saying that correctly. This was back in 1885, where he had 9 patients with a convulsive tic disorder. No one really knows exactly what causes Tourette's, other than a combination of genetic and environmental factors. To go back to tics, tics are sudden, intermittent movements or sounds that are signs of Tourette syndrome. They can range from mild to severe. Tourette's is a spectrum disorder. The symptoms vary from mild to severe, depending on the case. Severe symptoms can interfere with communication and daily life functioning. Those can be mitigated with certain different things. So to go into tics, we got simple tics, which are sudden, brief, and repetitive, and they involve less muscle groups. So this is something like eye blinking. Let's see here: eye blinking, head jerking, shoulder shrugging, eye darting, nose twitching, and mouth movements. This has to do more with motor tics specifically as simple. In the other case, you have vocal tics, which are simple tics like grunting, coughing, throat clearing, and barking. And then we also have complex tics, which are distinct patterns of movements involving several muscle groups. So these are a little more complicated, obviously, with the word complex. Motor tics involved in this involve touching or smelling objects, repeating observed movements, stepping in a certain pattern, obscene gestures, bending or twisting, and hopping. And then with vocal tics is where you get the ones that you may or may not be more familiar with, repeating one's own words or phrases, repeating others' words or phrases, and then using those vulgar or obscene or swear words. Okay, so moving on to who it affects. There aren't really any typical cases to draw from. They're all pretty case by case. Tics begin to develop from the ages of 2 to 15 years old. Average age of onset is 6 years old. Males are 3 to 4 more times likely to develop Tourette syndrome. And here I have a graph that shows you that Tourette syndrome usually seems a pretty high percentage that it couples with another disorder. If you're looking at this graph here, we see ADHD, behavioral problems, anxiety, depression. So they kind of co-occur with one another in that regard. The prognosis of Tourette syndrome, we recognize it to be a spectrum disorder, which tells you that it's a case by case. Again, it's mild to severe symptoms, but Tourette's people with Tourette's live normal lifespans. Aside from maybe the severity of cases, people tend to live relatively normal lives through different treatments and things like that. Those vary, again, case by case with this particular one. On the screen here, you'll see a picture of the side view of the brain. And from what science tells us, the basal ganglia and thalamus are involved the most with Tourette syndrome. Those seem to be the main parts of the brain that create the pathway disruption that causes the tics to occur. So as far as treatments go, we got unfortunately there's no specific treatment. There's no cure for Tourette syndrome. No single medication will help assist. It's a coupling of a lot of different things that people use. Mainly understanding and knowledge of the condition is of most importance. Having information and support, learning how to work with the tics seem to be the way to go. Behavioral therapies in conjunction with medication help manage it. It's a manageable condition. So there is good news involved with it. It seems to be a relatively manageable condition that people are able to maintain through therapies and medications. So the reason that I chose Tourette syndrome is I first came about Tourette's. There's a Nirvana song called Tourette's. It's just Tourette's, and that always caught my attention. I didn't really know what it was, and years later, when I was an obnoxious young man, I ran across videos on YouTube of these it was just very obnoxious humor, and it was called Tourette's Guy. It was a pretty big, it was a decent internet phenomenon, probably in the early 2000s. And it was just this guy kind of, it's hard to say. It felt like an act. I'm not entirely sure because I haven't investigated it, but he was, if he did have Tourette syndrome, it was on the very severe side. It seemed to really affect his everyday life. But it was funny. It was entertaining. And that's why it's kind of like, I don't know if that was real or not, but that's what drew me in was, well, here's an opportunity to find out and learn more about it. So I hope you learned a little bit in my presentation. I hope that this was, a good description, and I hope that this helps out. So thank you very much, and we'll see you later.